Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're talking about Anna Delvey. She's the woman who basically proved that in the wild world of the super rich, looking the part is pretty much everything. We're going to break down exactly how this fake German heiress managed to charm and then con some of New York City's most exclusive circles. Okay, so let's get right into it. How did she do it? Because the answer isn't just, she told some clever lies. Her story pulls back the curtain on a fascinating and, let's be honest, kind of uncomfortable truth about the very world she wanted to join so badly. See, she didn't need a bunch of high-tech forgeries or some giant criminal network. Her real weapon? It was way simpler. It was all about understanding one core, unwritten rule of that high society. And that right there, that was the key to her entire operation. She was a master at realizing that in certain rooms, the show of money can be just as valuable, if not more, than actually having it in the bank. And that's what makes her story a perfect and kind of scary mirror for our culture today. So where did this all begin? Well, when Anna Sorokin showed up in New York City, she didn't just, get an apartment. She basically erased who she was and methodically built someone else from the ground up. The sheer audacity of this transformation is what's so wild. On one side, you've got the reality, Anna Sorokin, daughter of a truck driver. And on the other, you've got the illusion, Anna Delvey, this chic German heiress with a massive trust fund that was always, so conveniently, just tied up overseas. That huge gap between who she was and who she pretended to be, that's where the whole con lived and breathed. She basically turned the signs of wealth into a weapon. It wasn't just about the expensive clothes. It was the whole vibe, this bored, entitled attitude she had. She knew that in these elite circles, it's considered rude, it's tacky to ask direct questions about someone's money. So she just acted the part so convincingly that nobody ever dared to call her on it. Okay, so she's got the persona down pat. Now she moves on to the main event, the centerpiece of her whole con. This was a project so ambitious, it would give her the perfect excuse to start asking for millions and millions of dollars. The Anna Delvey Foundation, honestly, it was pure genius. This wasn't just some vague idea she talked about at dinner. No, it was a super detailed pitch with architectural plans, lists of famous artists she was in talks with. It was the perfect cover story to make her illusion of wealth seem totally legitimate.
And this just shows you the insane scale of her ambition. We're not talking about tricking a friend into paying for lunch here. She was using forged bank statements to try and get a $22 million loan from a major investment firm. She was going after the big fish.
But while she was chasing these massive institutional loans, her cons were also causing real personal damage. That infamous trip to Morocco is the perfect, awful example. When all her credit cards were mysteriously declined, she talked her friend into putting the $62,000 bill on her card, promising a wire transfer that, you guessed it, never ever came. And this was just her move. It was her pattern. She'd live for months at a time in these incredibly fancy New York hotels like 11 Howard and just rack up insane bills. This whole cycle of living large on credit with zero intention of ever paying was the engine that kept the whole illusion going. But, a lifestyle that's funded by bounce checks and broken promises, that kind of house of cards can't stand forever. And inevitably, the stacks of unpaid bills started to catch up to her, and things began to fall apart. It all started to crumble when the banks started asking for, actual proof of her funds for that huge loan. Then came the explosion from the Morocco trip, and pretty soon after, hotels were locking her out of her rooms. By the summer of 2017, she was basically on the run and was finally arrested in a sting operation out in LA. And this is where the story gets even crazier. You'd think getting arrested would be the end, right? Nope. For Anna, her downfall just became another performance. Her trial turned her into a full-blown media sensation. I mean, seriously, you can't make this stuff up. She hired a professional stylist to pick out her outfits for court. This one little detail says everything about her obsession with image. Even as a defendant, on trial for grand larceny, she understood that perception was everything. So, in April of 2019, the courtroom fashion show finally came to an end. A jury found her guilty on 8 counts, and she was sentenced to 4 to 12 years in prison. The fake heiress was now, officially, a convicted felon. But here's the ultimate twist. The most unbelievable irony of this whole story. While she was in prison, Netflix paid her $320,000 for the rights to her life story. So the woman who faked being rich actually got rich by selling the story of how she faked it. Just wild. So this brings us to the final and maybe the most interesting part of this whole saga. Why were we, and why are we still, so completely obsessed with Anna Delvey? I mean, listen to how she justifies what she did. This quote, it just taps right into this deep public cynicism we have about wealth and inequality. She almost frames herself as this, I don't know, a warped kind of Robin Hood, taking from a system she saw as rigged anyway. It's a shaky moral argument for sure, but it's one that a lot of people secretly kind of understood.
Her story just hit on so many different cultural nerves at once, you know? She exposed how flimsy all these systems of status really are. She was this dark, twisted version of the American dream. And in our age of Instagram, where everyone is curating their life, her story felt like the logical, if totally criminal, final step.
When you really boil it all down, what Anna did was hold up a giant mirror to a world that so often cares about appearance than it does about substance. Her greatest con wasn't just stealing the money, it was exposing the entire system that let her get away with it for so long. The story of Anna Delvey is just this powerful reminder to question what we see. It really forces you to ask how much of the status and power we see all around us is actually real, and how much is just a really, really good performance. It makes you wonder where the next carefully built illusion is hiding, probably right in plain sight.